you come back to WWF as the commissioner.
Yes.
2000 was, one of the biggest years WWF ever had. You're in there within weeks.
Again, how did I pull that off? Seriously, when I look back at all the things that I think one of the reasons that I'm here and one of the reasons that I've had the jobs that I've had, or like now, I've made no bones about it. The only reason I'm in AEW is because Brian Danielson asked me to come. Right? I was ready to take a year off because I've done nothing but wrestling for 39 years. And again, the last 13 years was a lot of, and I never once thought it was work. I enjoyed all of it. But looking out, trying to make sure everybody was okay and could get jobs for as many people as I could, and to try and build something in this country that was a safe haven for wrestlers and look after people so they got a weekly wage check. Whatever any of you want to think about NXT UK, COVID messed a lot of things up, but it was to help a lot of people and to get people great training and get a weekly paycheck. I always wanted that when I was a wrestler, so they didn't get taken for a ride. Because I've worked for promoters who took you for a ride, and I met some good people and I met some people who weren't good. But I always wanted to do that. As a wrestler, I wanted to be able to, for Britain or for Europe, I wanted to have a decent place where you hadn't got to mess about haggling over your money or whatever, and this is what you're going to get, and here's the training facility to do it in. If people don't like that, that's on them. Whether it worked out or not, I can't help that. That's not my doing, but it was a big thing to me. So how have I ended up doing all this? I mean, 2000, you say, was an unbelievable year, but it's because people looked after me. I've tried to be like that with other people. And then ending up in 2000 with The Rock and Steve Austin and all that.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because not a lot of people would come on TV and within weeks be in main events with Steve Austin, main events with The Rock. Obviously, you knew Steve Austin.
I forget all that, right? Because you'll say that, but people think I'm just like a normal wrestler. I was like doing main events with Steve Austin. I was never a pay-per-view person, but a main evented with Steve. How have I done that? I don't think I've done that. Sometimes I hear, like you told me, oh yeah, I did that. Yeah, how did that happen? How did I do a main event, one SmackDown with the Rock? How did they give me that opportunity? How did I get to do a 10-minute talking segment on Thanksgiving that I knew nothing about whatsoever until afterwards, and then I found out what an absolutely disgraceful holiday that is to celebrate. Unbelievable. But you're going to tell me stuff now, and I'm just going to be going, this is when the fan bit of me comes out, when people start telling me, because I just did what I had to do because it was my job. And the people that taught me, it's your job. That's what I'm known for. Can you do that? Yeah. Okay, thanks. And that's it. That's all I used to say to people. So you're going to tell me stuff now, and I'm still in my head trying to process. I don't think I'll ever process how much opportunities I was given, because I don't know what I was doing getting that opportunity at that time, and somehow I just bluffed my way through it all. So carry on, please.
So with that in mind, because at that point, we don't need to go into, you've told the story loads of times, but the initial WWF run, now you come back, you've sort of...
The initial WWF run, if you can remember it, because I can't. And there's nothing clever about that, and there's nothing funny about that, stupidity. But it's the reality. But what I will say about that initial run is, whoever came up with that idea, whatever the stories are, Jim Johnson, who wrote that music, did something magic, because of my 39-year career in this job, more people still mention that 5 weeks that I did that than anything else I've ever done. And I can't remember a single minute of it. So they obviously did something right. And if I'd have been of sound mind, I just want to say that, because there's whatever you hear it from me now, if I hadn't been in the way I was at the time, I would have made that work. And I would have run with that, because that's what you've got to do. If there's anybody it doesn't matter if it's wrestling or not. If you just get given that, make it work, or try to. Because if you do, there's a good chance it'll work. If you don't, pretty much good chance you won't. So that goes for anything in life. And I don't want to sit here like some old man, they do this. Just give it a chance. So I go back in 2000, again, I get thrown straight in doing this incredible stuff, and I still don't know.
And how did you feel at that point when you come in as you come in as the Goodwill ambassador, and they're giving you these Rock and Austin matches? How are you feeling at that point? Are you like coming in? It's kind of like a new start for you.
New start for me, and trying to do everything right. And the wrestling at the time, unless I was on. We've talked about there's a difference, right? Pre-1990s, early 1990s, anybody that came into the wrestling business came in a different way. From the 90s onwards, and this is no knock on anybody, but it became the wrestling school years. That is a very different world. And adaptability, it became, that was the first time anybody used to say anything to me about, oh, you've got a different, or you got an awkward style, or you don't fit in. Nobody ever said that about that when I was in WCW. Because if I wrestled Arn Anderson, or if I wrestled Terry Taylor, or Brad Armstrong, or anybody that was pre-90, you had to learn to fit into every place you went to and adapt. And there was a universal language of wrestling. It didn't matter. There was no formula. There was no 12 weeks of getting trained and you were in the wrestling business. It was, you had to, and you either kept up or you weren't there anymore if you had a spot in the wrestling business. So, and when I got to WWE in 2000, a few people, which was Steve Austin and anybody that had been around, and again, people starting in the 90s, just because they started a wrestling school, if they'd been in it a long enough time to survive in the wrestling, to stay around, not everybody, but a lot of people, they just have to adapt. To stay in the wrestling, you have to adapt. So if I wrestled people that were whatever, I was fine. I didn't think about it. But because I'd been stupid when I was there the last time in 1999, I was trying to do everything as perfect as possible. And WWE have a certain way of using cameras, which is a 10-to-2 system. Hard camera, which is the main camera, and then the two ringside cameras are your detail cameras. And if you think about it, everybody, I've heard these stupid stories over the years where people go, oh, they keep people at NXT because they're not using the cameras right. Think about it from your perspective as a fan. You can be the best wrestler in the world, but if I'm doing this, you have no idea what I'm doing. Not a clue. And so if you're doing all your moves opposite where those cameras are, or these two poor fellas who have the hardest job in wrestling, and the two people who hold the cameras on the side of the ring have the hardest job in wrestling, because they have to carry a 60-pound camera on their shoulders for about 5 hours a night. And if you want to get a 50 or 60-pound sandbag and put it on your shoulders and see how long you can hold it, good luck. Because everyone I know that does it is completely crippled up. They have about a 20-year career max, and they all end up in worse state than any wrestler I've ever seen, because of having offloaded weight on one shoulder, and they all end up with withered necks and withered arms. So what they try to do, what you should do as a wrestler, is try to make sure they don't have to run up and chase after you, because you're making their life hard work. And if by the time you may not, I'm going to give you some tricks of the trade, and unfortunately this is going to ruin a lot of wrestling for you now. So that person, they have to be about and it doesn't matter what company you work for, they're 2 to 3 feet from the corner. Well, if you're beating somebody up in that corner on TV and you've got a 5 count, so you've got a break at 4, I'm going to have to stand up to show you this. Camera. Just all that, Kenny. 1, 2, 3, 4. What can you see? Can you see the person there? No, because I'm covering it. Can you see my face? No, because I'm covering it. Now Kenny, as the cameraman, has got to run up here. He might get there for the 1 second, like 1 or 2 seconds of that. 4 seconds can change your entire career. Because if you do it in this front cam, in these, and you've got a camera there, a camera there, and a camera there, and you've got a producer who can take any shot of that, and you're going, 1, 2, 3. It's Robert De Niro in Goodfellas doing that to somebody. And I've seen careers change over that. And I mean that, and I have seen it time and time and time again. And if you're doing this, you have no idea what I'm doing now. You don't know if I'm happy, mad, glad, sad. Here's a little trick I'm going to tell you all. If you ever go to a TV wrestling show, you think that that is the best seat in the house. It is the worst if the wrestlers are doing the job right. Because if you go to anything, right, why do you go? You want to interact. You want to see what I'm doing. You want to hear me, right? Well, if you're doing the job for the fans at home, which is, 5,000 people, minimum of probably 1 million, and a few million in some cases, right? You're doing everything for them, cheer. Most wrestling shows, if you're doing camera work right, and again, trying to look after your cameraman, these people behind end up looking at the back of everybody's head for a while, and then they go quiet. If you watch, now I've told you that, you watch any TV show, any drama, any show, and a good director of any TV show will never let you see the back of anybody's head for more than a split second. Because, again, happy, mad, glad, sad, you have no idea what I'm doing now. You got no clue. And now you can. So that's, when you hear these things about cameras, well, when I got to the WWE, I was trying to be a really good boy. And on TV, I didn't feel like I was doing as good as I could be as a wrestler. Except for when I was on with really experienced people who I didn't have to think about, because I didn't have to worry about, they knew where to be for the cameras. I didn't have to put people in that position. So I felt like I was very robotic for the first, and then again, I think it was me being on live events, because I was always a live event. I was always booked on live events. Reports going back, wow, he gets a ton of heat. He knows how to do his job. But TV, I was very trying to do this and trying to not. Also, there was a whole new group of people. Well, if you've never wrestled someone like me, who works the style I work, you might not like it. Because I hit people hard, right? In safe places, but I hit them. And some people didn't like that. And so I didn't want to sort of offend anybody. Because sometimes that's what it comes to. You've got to, and I'm not, especially on TV, until we went to HD, and even more so with HD, I am going to hit you really hard. And you're not going to see through any of my tricks. And the problem is with tricks, there's no trick to it. I am hitting you really hard, right? I'm not a phony wrestler. You don't ever see me doing what everybody knows about wrestling. That's not what I do. I learned a different set of tricks. Well, some people don't like that. They don't like being taken out of their comfort zone or getting knocked about. But I allowed myself to work around them, if that makes any sense. And I wasn't happy with a lot of the stuff. I was like, ugh. Another thing was not being able to, they didn't want me wearing a robe. And once I got used to a robe, that was my security blanket. And it became part of this. Be honest, it was the best bit of my act. Because as soon as the robe came off, it was downhill from then onwards. But when I had the robe, I could go out and do all my stuff. I was just sort of, as the commissioner at first, with no robe and just trunks and boots, I was just sort of, I didn't feel, it took me a while, so about 2 years, until Fit Finlay, once Fit Finlay came, and again, I'm sorry if this offends, but it's part of my life, so I have to just mention his name. From the day I got there was Chris Benoit, Triple H, anybody that knew me, Jim Ross, everybody. Why are you working down to people? Make them work up to you. But I'm trying to, I'm fine. I'm really trying to do this, so I don't want to because your cameraman can be your best friend or your worst as well. That's another thing. If they don't know you, they didn't know me at the time. If they know you, they don't mind coming out. Sometimes they're knackered by the time you go out, and they don't have to get a shot if they don't want to. So if any of you are wrestlers, make sure you're very polite and nice, genuinely nice to your cameramen, because they don't have to get them shots. They can quite happily just stay in that corner and not chase after you. These are all little things, right? But it affects. So I'm doing that. Eventually, once Fit got there, it's Fit, why are you working down to people? And it became where I just got comfortable as myself, and then I got my road back and I was off to the races from then onwards, eventually. But in that time, you can carry on with whatever. I know I go off on these things, but nobody else is going to tell you a lot of this stuff, and sometimes it's just good to hear. So that's why a lot of the times when you hear these stupid stories, why did they keep Shinsuke Nakamura in NXT? Well, it's because every time he did all these really good stuff, he kept doing it opposite the cameras. And it wasn't his fault. He's just not used to that system, because Japan just film from one camera and film down. And so but if you're in a system that doesn't do that, you better learn the system. I think, and the real truth is, he didn't want to leave NXT either for a while, because he was happy just having the easiest schedule he'd ever had and going surfing every day. You know, so, but there's things like that, you know what I mean? It's just, but it took a while for me to fit in. But again, you were going to tell me stuff now, and I'll be like, yeah, I don't know. So carry on. You booked me. You should. And the problem is, you know, because you've seen me. What do you expect? You thought you were just going to ask questions and get one answer. That doesn't work with me. It doesn't how it goes.
I'm picking my spots. I'm
trying
my
best.
I
promise you, I'll shut up now and just answer your questions. Otherwise, we'll be here till Christmas.